I will start. Good morning, everyone. I am Luca Esposito from University of Foggia, and today I will present this article that is a joint work with Gianluigi De Pascal and Anna Romagno, both from University of Foggia. The title is Behind the Wind, Mapping Externalities and Their Role in Shaping Willingness to Pay for Wind Energy. What is the idea? I will go very short inside of the introduction. Wind energy, of course, is playing a central role in the global energy transition. This for different reasons. First of all, because we don't have direct emissions, and there is also rapid growth, as we can observe from the data from IRENA 2022. There is quite huge growth from 1919 until the end of 2024. And another interesting point is related to this limited operational environmental impact. Of course, when we are talking of this kind of growth inside of the context of wind energy, this is not without any controversy. And what I mean with this, I mean that, of course, we have on both sides some positive and some negative externalities. Basically, when we observed the literature, and later I will explain more in detail, we realized that in the articles, the keywords that are more cited when we are talking about this kind of positive externalities are, of course, reduced air pollution, local job creation, and energy diversification and security. And when we are looking for negative externalities, of course, we can observe that we have some problem related to visual impact, noise, and biodiversity risks. And of course, these will generate another problem that is strongly correlated to the local resistance that, of course, can generate this kind of NIMBY effect problem. Then the idea of this work is trying to mapping and classifying these positive and negative externalities. And then after this, trying to understand and assessing their role in the shaping public preference and willingness to pay. And we observed also willingness to acceptance. And we are trying to answer two main research questions. The first one is what are the main externalities, positive and negative, related to wind energy? And second one is what is the relative importance of where is wind externality in explaining differences in willingness to pay for wind power generation? Why now this article? I mean, why this idea, and why we realized at the end of the day when we read all the articles that this research idea is relevant and is important right now for two reasons. The first one is that almost all the existing literature is fragmented. And the second point is that in the last 5 years, there are also some recent technological, of course, and societal change that we are integrating inside of this literature, systematic literature review. Like, for example, the importance of the urbanization of wind energy with projects like tire wind or tree wind. There is, related to the literature, as I was saying just a few seconds ago, of course, wind energy with solar energy are the two most important elements in the energy transition, component in the energy transition. And this is, of course, also related to what we call technological maturity. We are talking of technology that are pretty mature, are almost more than 20 years that we are observing this constant growth of wind energy onshore and offshore. And this, of course, generate different externalities that are, for example, rapid deployment and this energy mix diversification that is what the European Union is asking to all the countries for trying to achieving the low carbon emissions goals. Another interesting aspect when we observe the literature is the externalities and public acceptance. Of course, when we are observing the wind farms, this can have at some point having some effect, some external effect on local communities. And this is what before we defined like externalities. What does it mean? It means exactly collateral impacts on other parties, on third parties, based on Helbing 2010. And when we observed the externalities, in same point, we want to realize, okay, at which point then the citizen, the community is willingness to pay for the wind energy. And then willingness to pay, we observe that as a key metric inside of this kind of context of the literature is used to monetize perceived value of wind energy. And when I'm talking of this, I'm of course talking about benefits and cost with different methods like choice experiment or contingent valuation method. And there are several articles that are exactly testing how, for example, there is the article of CERTA 2024, quite present article that is explaining through some analysis how household willingness to pay between 113 and 124 euros for year for renewables. And when we observe this kind of relationship between externalities and willingness to pay, we observed how externalities can, of course, affect willingness to pay from different sides, from different perspectives. And here, based on the literature, we provide some example. For example, the visual impacts. Improvement, of course, in visual impacts can increase willingness to pay. But when we are talking about deteriorations, these can generate what before in the introduction I was defining like NIMBY problem. Then green policy. Of course, another interesting aspect is related to green to energy policy. Then if we have some implementation that will generate some feed-in tariff, some investment in the production of energy, of course, this has a positive effect on willingness to pay. And another very important aspect is related to biodiversity. We observed that basically, based on some articles that we read, all the variables that are linked to biodiversity, whether improvements or deteriorations, doesn't have a statistical significant effect on willingness to pay in all the model, almost all the model that other researchers, other authors tested. Before I was just talking very little about this kind of externalities. Here we realized and we searched based on the keywords the most important positive externalities. And this, of course, was important for us also for having the key for searching on Scopus. And then at the end of the analysis for having some articles to analyze and to put inside of the Prisma methodology that I will explain soon. First of all, we saw that there are several articles that are discussing about improved air quality. These, of course, will have a direct impact, a direct effect on health, reducing air pollution. The second one is also related to the first one, but is more on the line of lower greenhouse gas emission and how this can can contribute to reduce climate change mitigation. Then we also observed how the production of wind energy can generate additional income, especially when we are talking of rural areas. This is quite interesting point because, of course, when we are talking about rural areas, there is a problem that is strongly related to the depopulation of these areas. And then there is the job creation. There is job creation and the increasing number of green jobs especially as is observed in some article, as I was saying just a few seconds ago, in rural areas. And then there is an aspect that is more related to the economic component that is related to the price stability and, of course, energy security, and how this will have an important effect in the energy mix diversification. On the other side, when we read all the article for the key, we realized that negative externalities are almost related to wildlife impacts, especially for birds. This, of course, is almost related to the collision risks. There are some patterns for avoiding this kind of problem. And then another is the landscape and visual intrusion, especially in the coastal areas. And then this, of course, as is described in Walsing 2007, can generate this NIMBY problem. And then more relevant, but still present, we have the noise pollution that, of course, can generate, as is described in some article, increased stress, affect sleep, and reducing the quality of life. From a methodology perspective, what we used the PRISMA guidelines, that is the preferred reporting items for systematic review and meta-analysis. This, of course, is generated with a key query that is adopted based on, I will describe soon, to Scopus and Web of Science. And we analyzed wind energy and wind power and wind turbine, and both onshore and offshore wind. And then based on the article that we read and to the relevance of the externalities, we collected the positive and negative externalities. And then we added that then the willingness to pay and also the willingness to accept for a reason. Because we realized that at some point, the article that were talking to the willingness to accept, there was some relationship also with willingness to pay, that for us it was relevant, included some article like 6 or 7, if I remember properly now, for analyzing and for checking also this aspect. This is the identification of studies. As I was saying, we used the two main databases that are Scopus and Web of Science. In the beginning, in the identification step, we had 693 articles that we removed some article before the screening, like the applicate papers, it was 74. And then in the screening stage, we had 619 articles. When we read the article, we excluded also 76 articles because basically we're out of the topic. And then we had 443. From this, we had 132 papers not retrieved, and we had like 311 articles addressed for eligibility. When we read this article again, we excluded some article from, for example, for a wrong outcome. And this happened, for example, also for some article that were talking about willingness to pay, or not available in English, 38, and the reason article not available, 11. At the end of the day, we had 103 articles included in the review. And right now, as is described inside of this framework, we didn't consider working papers. Now, let's just go a little bit inside of the results and discussion. I will just show in a descriptive way how we can observe that from 1984 until 2023, 2024, we can observe that this trend of document by year increased every year almost. We did some analysis for checking from which country are coming the authors, that we did the documents by author. And in the same time, we did the co-authorship network map. Why this was interesting? Because this show us that if two authors, for example, collectively produce a published article, they are considered to have a mutually collaborative relationship. We can observe some important cluster like the violet one, Staffel, and the green one, Henriks and Hamann. And we did this from 2018 until 2024. Then what we observed is this K-word concurrence network map. We did analysis with VOS viewer. And in the concurrence network analysis, we use this software, and we can see that there are 3,955 different keywords are listed. And the keywords in the list are categorized in 7 clusters with 193 total items. Why this was interesting and why is interesting? Because basically the objective is trying to sketch the conceptual structure of a framework, or in the same time trying to summarize in a bibliometric collection using a concurrence network to map and cluster. And what we can see from here, we can see that we have a quite important cluster that is the wind power, and we have the willingness to pay, and we have the investment. And in the same time, we can observe inside of the cluster that we have also some interesting externalities. For example, carbon capture, or in the same time, green electricity, or sustainability, or environmental protection, carbon emissions. And we observe also the important role of financial benefits that, of course, here is more present when we are talking about keywords of investments. Then at the end of the analysis, we obtained some main results from the article that we read. We divided the results in two subsections. The first one is almost trying to mapping and describing these positive and negative externalities and what we realized from our systematic literature review. We have a reduction of emission, and air pollutant emission is the most frequently cited environment benefits, is almost in 90% of studies. And then we have a contribution to energy security and diversification of the energy mix. This is especially present when we are talking about European and North American context article research. And then there are several articles that are highlighting the local economic benefits, including, as I was saying before, the employment and income in rural areas. In the same time, when after all the Prisma, when we observed the negative externalities from these 103 articles, we observed that the main problem are almost related to visual and landscape impact. Is the most common reported is in developed countries, is present in over than 70% of the literature. And then we have problem related to noise impact, especially for birds, that this confirms what the literature is already saying. And then local communities that often are feeling that have to bear certain cost without then getting back some benefits. When we observed the most important part, I think, of our analysis, that is the relationship between willingness to pay and externalities, we realized that positive willingness to pay for wind project that includes, let's say, some mitigation measures, such as, like, for example, is quite present in several articles, the visual compensation and local compensation schemes. And there is also a part that is related to behavioral economics. What does it mean this? I mean that there is a higher willingness to pay in context where local benefits are clearly shared. Then this, of course, is showing us that and is suggesting, as I said, that there is a strong link between perceived fairness and public acceptance. Then, of course, also this is inside of behavioral economics. And then there are some experimental studies that are showing how high sensitivity of willingness to pay to location. And another important aspect is related to the cultural and socio-demographic factors. For example, where we can observe in such country, developed countries, where there is high level of education level, trust in institution, are key variables for willingness to pay for wind energy. Also, if there are some negative externalities, these are key elements that will reduce opposition. Then I will just conclude. Based on these very preliminary results that we got, the literature confirms that, of course, like all kind of renewable source, when we are talking of renewable energy, these can generate both positive and negative externalities. And that willingness to pay is highly influenced by not only if we are talking positive or negative externalities, but how these kind of externalities are managed and what is the perception of the citizenship and of the local community, also of the policymaker in trying to reducing these kind of externalities and then generate benefits. And then when we are talking about this kind of public acceptance, is not only, as I was saying, a technical or an environmental issue, but it's also something that is more related to the world of social science, that is socio-political one, that we need to do this kind of community involvement and try to communicate with the local community. And this, of course, will try to share to the local community the local benefit and in same time what the community can get back from the wind energy production. And based on this, we just wrote some very preliminary policy implication. One of the most important that we realized is that each region is different. Then when we are talking about European scenario or other country, what works in a place may not work in another, and then we need this kind of localized strategies that, of course, can be more effective. Another important point is that we need to include, as I was saying in the previous slide, people in the planning process and try to understand what people really are asking, and this of course, can avoid NIMBY reactions. And then, of course, we realized also in the keyword occurrence map that there is quite important cluster that is related to investment. Of course, if we are talking of community investment, these can build support and reduce pushback. And then related to this, when we are talking about this kind of complex relationship between externalities and willingness to pay, one very important aspect is related also to the energy policy and to how the policy can support and how the policy can know what the people really want and how try to manage. And when we are talking try to manage, we are talking also the distance from wind farms to the urban center or to the area that are, for example, coastal area, that of course this can generate a very important impact. And this is why in the last, let's say, 5 years, we say there is this, what before I cited in the beginning of my presentation, there is this urbanization of wind energy that is trying to including the wind energy also inside of the city, inside of the urban context. Right now, we observe that both onshore and offshore energy are most located, of course, for reason of space, in rural areas. But there are several projects like the wind energy, the colibri energy, or wind tree energy, tire wind, that are trying to integrate the wind energy inside of the city. And this, of course, will have an impact because it means that we can also create what right now we are calling renewable energy communities. And this, of course, will increase a lot the willingness to pay of citizenship in wind energy and will reduce, I think, almost 75 or 80% of the negative externalities. Then thank you so much. And if there are any question, of course, I am here. Thank you so much.